The Insight-Driven Leader by Jenny Dearborn. Most leaders today are surrounded by more data than they know what to do with. Metrics on operations, sales, and customers flood in from every direction. But there's one area where the data is often ignored, misused, or left disconnected from actual business decisions: your people. Having data isn't the same as understanding it, and in a world where the speed of change and the pressure to perform are always rising, making decisions based on assumptions about your workforce is a recipe for failure. This is where workforce analytics comes in. At its core, this is the practice of combining data about your people, their skills, performance, engagement, and movement, with business data to understand what's really happening inside your organization and why. Done well, it helps leaders spot patterns, anticipate challenges, and pinpoint what truly drives results. It transforms decision-making from guesswork into a science. In this guide, you'll learn how asking better questions, building stronger systems, and fostering a culture that supports evidence-based decisions can turn your people data into a powerful strategic advantage. It all starts with changing what you measure. Most organizations still rely on workforce data that's easy to collect but hard to act on. You're probably familiar with the numbers: turnover rates, training completion percentages, or the time it takes to fill open roles. But these metrics don't actually tell you what's working or where to focus your efforts. Unlike the finance department, HR is rarely pushed to explain the deeper meaning behind its numbers. And that's a massive missed opportunity. The key is to stop looking only at what happened and start asking why it happened and what you should do about it. For example, knowing how many people took a training course tells you about activity, not impact. To improve something, you have to measure the effect, not just the effort. In a call center, tracking the number of agents who were assigned mentors is a useless metric. But comparing the customer satisfaction and retention rates between agents who had mentors and those who didn't, that gives you a clear, actionable insight into what actually made a difference. This principle applies everywhere. Learner satisfaction scores for a training session, often based on things like room temperature or the quality of the lunch, don't predict any real behavior change or business results. Prioritizing speed in hiring can lead to poor fits, especially in critical leadership roles. If you want to make better hiring decisions, you need to look at whether new employees actually reach full productivity, stay with the company, and perform well in the long run. A real-world example from the credit company Experian shows what's possible. They were facing rising attrition and growing costs. Their people analytics team built a predictive model that assigned a flight risk score to employees who were most likely to leave, based on up to 200 data points for each person. Armed with this insight, HR and leadership took targeted action to retain these key employees. The result? They cut global attrition by 4%, saving over $14 million. Just as importantly, HR earned significant influence in the business. If you want better answers from your data, you have to start asking better questions. Of course, you can't expect to get value from workforce analytics if the systems behind it are a mess. The organizations getting real traction are not only asking better questions, but they're also investing in the people, platforms, and processes needed to answer them. The challenge often starts with the data itself. HR information is frequently scattered across different systems, is inconsistent, and is locked behind tight legal and ethical restrictions. Job titles and performance scores can mean different things in different departments or countries. Even when the data exists, privacy concerns and outdated technology can make it slow or impossible to access. And because HR data has historically been treated as a simple reporting obligation, it rarely has the same credibility as financial or operational metrics. A common barrier is poor integration. To be useful, workforce data needs to connect with data from finance, and sales, but very few organizations do this well. Enabling analytics requires cross-functional collaboration. In one software company, leaders used integrated HR and sales data to fix a costly problem. It was taking new sales reps far too long to become productive. By getting the right people around the table, they spotted gaps in the onboarding process, adjusted training, and cut the ramp-up time in half. That translated directly into faster revenue and higher employee retention. You also need the right tools and clear rules for how data is handled. Data governance is essential. Making sure information is used ethically, shared appropriately, and tied to clear value for both the business and its employees. Building that trust is slow, but it's absolutely necessary if you want your analytics efforts to have a lasting impact. Once this foundation is set, it's time to raise the bar for the team at the center of it all, our. If you want better results from your workforce data, you need to expect more from the team that manages it. This means rethinking the role of HR, not as a support function, but as a strategic force tied directly to business performance. Other business functions have already made this leap. Information technology used to be about fixing computers, until digital strategy turned CIOs into executive heavyweights. Finance moved from simple bookkeeping to guiding corporate investment. HR is on that same threshold. Today's best HR teams are influencing culture, advising on growth, and using advanced analytics to solve critical business challenges. Consider how one global hotel company reversed its declining guest satisfaction. When leadership saw customer scores and revenue drop across several properties, they asked their HR analytics team to investigate. The team traced the problem to an over-reliance on contract front desk workers, who were missing critical training and had weaker ties to the brand. Why was this happening? A recent software update had made it easier to hire contractors than full-time staff. HR flagged the issue, helped adjust the systems, and guided new hiring limits. Within a few months, guest satisfaction scores rose, and sales soon followed. This is what happens when HR is trusted to solve problems, not just execute tasks. But this is only half the equation. You also need to hold your entire leadership team accountable for workforce results. Attrition, engagement, hiring efficiency. These numbers are business metrics and should be tracked just like revenue or profit margins. When everyone owns people outcomes, HR becomes a more effective partner, and the entire business gets smarter. To truly compete, organizations need a culture that expects and supports evidence-based decisions at every level. Becoming an insight-driven company means shifting from isolated pockets of data experts to a mindset where using data is standard operating procedure. And that change starts at the top. Many executives say they want a data-driven culture, but then still rely on gut instinct when it matters most. That gap has to close. Leadership sets the tone, not just by tracking performance with data, but by using it to shape the business strategy itself. Here again, HR can be a force multiplier. When HR is equipped with automation and analytics skills, it can drive incredible results. AI-powered tools can predict attrition, suggest fairer pay structures, and streamline hiring. Microsoft, for example, saved tens of thousands of hours by using virtual HR agents. IBM cut employee churn by a third with AI tools that supported better compensation decisions. When HR stops just reacting and starts analyzing, it becomes a real driver of business performance. But even the best tools won't work without the right culture. Trust and transparency are key. Take the example of a Fortune 500 financial firm that was struggling with digital transformation. The real issue wasn't technology. It was low trust and cultural resistance. Once leaders addressed this head-on with extensive training and a commitment to alignment, trust scores jumped 12%, and the company saw its best financial performance in years. Building an insight-driven culture doesn't happen overnight, but it reshapes how a company operates from the ground up. Ultimately, to make a lasting impact with workforce analytics, the change has to start at the very top, with the partnership between the CEO and the Chief Human Resources Officer, or CHRO. The strongest CHROs go beyond HR basics to shape culture, build leadership pipelines, and steer the entire workforce strategy. But only about a quarter of them are playing that role today. Why? In many cases, CEOs simply haven't raised their expectations. A clear example of what this partnership looks like in practice is the transformation at Microsoft. When Satya Nadella became CEO, he partnered closely with CHRO Kathleen Hogan to completely overhaul the company's culture. They rebuilt it around collaboration, continuous learning, and a shared sense of purpose, all linked directly to business performance. They redesigned systems, introduced shared leadership principles, and used data to track employee engagement and progress. The results were dramatic. Revenue and profits soared, and employee satisfaction hit all-time highs. To get results like these, the CHRO must be treated as a true strategic partner who reports directly to the CEO. The CEO, in turn, must include HR in corporate planning, give the department room to innovate, and protect budgets for learning and development. The most powerful data in the world won't mean a thing without leadership that knows how to use it. The main takeaway from the insight-driven leader is that turning workforce data into real business value requires a fundamental mindset shift across your organization. It means asking better questions, expecting HR to be a strategic driver of results, and building a culture where data informs every important decision. The organizations getting this right aren't just collecting numbers, they're acting on what matters. With clear expectations, smart investments, and strong executive alignment, you can make that same shift and build a workforce strategy that's ready for whatever comes next.